That's one of the things every time I come here, I always look forward to is your choir and your music. It's pretty amazing. Again, I want to greet you on behalf of the other 134 churches in this conference, of which you're part. These are your siblings throughout Southern California and Nevada, and we all together form the Southern California Nevada Conference of the United Church of Christ. And it's great to be in covenant with one another and knowing that there are others praying for us, there are others serving with us and supporting one another. I have to apologize. I got the bulletin, I look at it, and I don't know where my mind was, but the reading today was one chapter behind of the text that I want to share with you. And I didn't realize that until it was read. I go like, that's not what I was thinking. Not your fault, not your secretary's fault, my fault. So I take that. So this is what we're going to be preaching on today, is Mark chapter 2, verses 21 and 22. No one sews a piece of unstrung cloth on an old cloak, otherwise the patch pulls away from it, the new from the old, and a worse tear is made. And no one puts new wine into old wineskins, otherwise the wine will burst the skins, and the wine is lost, and so are the skins. But one puts new wine into fresh wineskins. So thank you. That was a beautiful reading, by the way. Loved it. And then I said, should I just make up the sermon with that? I've done that before, so. So old wineskins and new wineskins. That's an interesting passage of Scripture. And a lot of times we tend to think that old wineskins are not good. Actually, old wineskins are great. They're great for old wine. And as I was reflecting on this, on the passage, a book that I read some time ago came to mind, and the title of the book is What Got You Here Won't Get You There, by Marshall Goldsmith. And Marshall is an executive coach. I am an executive coach, so I try to follow the readings. And he basically focuses on helping corporations, Fortune 500s, into becoming better at what they do. And as I read the book, as I read Marshall's book, I said, there are some great concepts here that we can use in the church and for the church. And then, the passage of the wineskins came to mind. And in my 10 years as conference minister, I have noticed something with many churches. Is that they try very hard, work very hard, use all the energy, a lot of times doing same things over and harder, hoping that things will change. And as we all know, that's the definition of insanity. And what Marshall, in his book, presents is that all solutions of the past will not solve the problems of the future. No wineskins, no wine. The premise is that sometimes we think that what worked in the past will work tomorrow, and it never does. Because the challenges of the present and the future are different. Those solutions were good back then. They were wonderful, and they worked. But they will not take us where we need to be. And in that conversation, a couple of things that came to mind that I find so true, not only with myself, but also with churches I work with, is that some realities. The first is that we might not be as good as we think we are. Wow. Sometimes we think we're all, the truth is that there are people who are doing this Christian faith thing better than we are. There are other churches that are doing it better than we are. There are pastors that do the ministry better than I do. So for me to think that I am the only one who can do it this way, it's not healthy, and it won't get me where I need to go. Because it's understanding where my shortcomings are as a church, as a person, that actually help me grow and be who God has called me to be. Along with the wineskin parable, Marshall says something very important. He says that to successful enterprises, past is always prologue. Past is not present. Past is the preface, the introduction. So we cannot live in the past. The past is important. The past make a reference to what has been. In the Bible, the past is very important. That's why we tell the story to this day. Because faith is based in the past. You don't know that? It's not what Hebrews says, that faith is, knowing, kind of hoping for that God is going to be in the future. But the reason we know God is going to be with us in the future is because God has been with us in the past. And that's the story of the Bible. But we cannot go back to the past. We cannot go back to the past. We cannot go back to the glory days. And have you noticed that the glory days get more glorious as time goes by? Because we tend to forget all the challenges, and we remember only the good days. So the past is not going to get us where we need to be. The past will be a reference of where we have been, will help us avoid mistakes we have made in the past, and help us develop a new way forward. I have also a background in counseling, and I am convinced that many times churches suffer from cognitive dissonance. You know what that is? It means that the more we are committed to believe something is true, the less willing we are to hear that what we believe is not true. Or hear that what we believe is not true. In other words, the more we're committed to believe something, the less likely we are to hear something different. And I work with many churches who are declining because they suffer from cognitive dissonance. The other thing that I think has to do with this wineskin theme is that change is happening so fast, that we cannot keep up with it. Give you an example. I am a techie. I used to write software programs in the 80s. Okay, before Windows. I work on DOS, and I work on C++, and I wrote code from scratch. It was part of my ministry, by the way, I talked to my son who was a programmer, and you just take the chunks and put them here, move them there. And so I consider myself a techie. I like computers. I just put a gaming computer together, although I don't play games, but I am a power user, so I need a lot of speed. And I put it together myself. But now I hear about AI, about VR, virtual reality, and the things that are being done with that, and it just blows my mind. And I say, I have no clue how to work with that. And yet, when I work with the churches, they're still doing ministry as if there was the 1960s. Many churches I work with still doing the same things. And the world has moved on. And we need to catch up. So how do we catch up? How do we put wine in new wineskins? Well, first thing we do is try to see what's happening out there in the world that the church can use to reach out to the world. One population is missing in churches are the youth and the young adults and the millennials. Those are missing. And us, baby boomers, are getting older, unfortunately, although we don't think we are. So how do we reach out to the millennials? How do we reach out to the youth? How do we bring young families into the church? Many churches are doing different things. And not everything works in every church. But I'll give you some examples. I went recently to a very conservative evangelical megachurch because my daughter is part of that church and my granddaughter was being presented, so I had to go. And the theology was not my theology. Nothing wrong with that. It's a different path. It's just not my theology, not what I'm comfortable with. But one thing I saw in that church that blew my mind, excuse me, I suffer from allergies, and this is what happens. The first thing I noticed, mega churches, they have a big platform for performance. We all know that. There's a band, usually with drummers. That's normal. What was different about this church? They had a dance floor. So during worship, as the band is playing, these millennials and young people will come to the dance floor to dance, to pray, to raise their hands, to kneel. Everyone. There was not a seat empty. Filled. All the seats were empty. It's too early for me, I guess. And I was just in awe at seeing this multi-generational display of adoration and worship to God on this dance floor. This church had stolen an idea from concerts. And it's attractive. They have 3 services. The first 2 are for millennials and young people. And they have over 1,000 people in each service. Wow. It's mind-blowing. That caught my attention. And I said, I wonder if we have a UCC church that's willing to try this. I seriously doubt it. Yet, it gives us an example of what can be done that we are not trying yet to attract young people. By the way, this church is, and in my last church, we did an experiment starting two services because our first service, our 10 o'clock service was too packed. Good problem to have, and we needed a second service. So we started service at 8:30 in the morning. We were told, you don't do that. People are not going to show up. It's too early. We had over 150 millennials and young people in that service at 8:30 in the morning. And it was very different than the 10 o'clock service. We did everything very different. So trying things, new things that are scary, very scary, because then a complaint I heard in my church was, we're trying to divide the church. Usually that's the complaint of change. We're trying to divide. No, we're creating a new experience or a new group of people that we otherwise could not reach. Still part of the same family. So why do we do all these things? Why is it that we need to put new wine in new wineskins? Well, first of all, that's our mission. We have been called to transform the world. We have called to invite the lost, to give them a place to be. We are called to refuel, strengthen people who come on Sundays and beyond. We're called to welcome the faithful and to welcome the faithless. My last church, I had 2 resident agnostics. They have been members of the church for 20 years. And they will stay out of the worship service until the sermon time. For some reason, they like my sermons. Don't know. They'll show up, they will listen to the sermon, and right after the sermon, they will leave. And then they will wait for everyone in Friendship Hall. They were welcome in that church. They were part of us. So the church welcomes the faithful and the faithless. Last I checked, if I read my Bible right, by the way, I do read my Bible. I was talking to, I'm going in this tangent, I'm almost done, don't worry. I was talking to a different denomination. I was training a group of people in a different denomination this past week. And they were surprised that I said that I pray and I read my Bible. They said, but aren't you UCC? And I go, yeah, United Church of Christ. Oh, okay, so we're surprised. Weird, but I read my Bible, I pray, and whenever I read my Bible, I see Jesus reaching out to the marginalized, the people that have nowhere to go, the people that are shunned, the people that are neglected. He touches lepers, which is a no-no. It was a no-no in his time. He heals women and talks to them, which is a no-no in his time. Everything he did, he was reaching out for the lost, the marginalized, the one that no one cares about. We have been called to do that as a church, to follow on Jesus' step. God is calling this church and every church to be new wine on new wineskins. We have been called to engage the world in which we live in with a word of good news, a word of love, a word of peace. We are in an amazing, ugly political time in this country. And I don't care which party you belong to, I really don't. We are all in a mess. And there's hatred and anger and fear. I heard recently that here in some parts of this country, people are not going to Chinese restaurants because of fear of the coronavirus. So what do? I go to Chinese restaurants. One, because I love Chinese food, and two, because I want to support these restaurants. We're afraid of one another. We are afraid to disagree with one another. Have you noticed that in this country? And if you disagree with me and I disagree with you, now we get in an argument, an ugly argument. As the church, we have been called to reconciliate, to sit down and listen to each other. It doesn't matter if we disagree. We all have different lenses we are seeing reality through. We have been called to peace. We have called to love one another. And when we disagree, we agree to disagree. Friends, do you want to be the new church with the new wine and the new wineskins? Let's look at the world and start doing things different. Scary. Very scary. But I guarantee you that we start doing that, we'll transform this community. We'll transform ourselves. And the Holy Spirit will move through us in amazing ways. Thank you very much, and God bless you.